So, at dawn when the sky is half lit, I step into that alley for the first time. The cobblestone path is fringed with soft green moss. At the end is a small 2-story building. Its spotty old walls have been repaired and freshly painted white. In front of the building, a small osmanthus tree stands tall, its fragrance wafting through the air. I take a deep breath and push the door open. My eyes are met with a living room adorned with various hand-drawn paintings. The man has his back to the door, wearing a white work vest, his arm muscles taut and defined. A cigarette is pinched between his fingers, while his other hand organizes tools on a workbench. Hearing the sound, he flicks the ash off his cigarette and continues with his task. His tone is indifferent. We're not open yet. It's not time for business. I know the sign by the door says 15/2400, but I want to say I'm not here for a tattoo. Finding it difficult even to open my mouth, I realize I'd forgotten to treat last night's injuries and my lips are stuck together. You should come back this afternoon. He turns around. The cigarette in his hand trembles. His dark eyes fix on me. After a pause, he curses softly under his breath. Before I have time to think why, "Son, do you want your fried rice? Oh my, I said we got up early today. What a ghostly surprise." A woman shows her face only briefly before hurriedly rushing back into the kitchen with a spatula in hand. So fast, I only catch a glimpse of her clothing. Something occurs to me. A small mirror is handed to me. The man leans his head on his hand, putting out the cigarette like he doesn't want to talk further. I take the mirror. In it, a pale girl with disheveled hair stares back. Dark circles under her eyes, made more pronounced by their size, and one side of her face is swollen, dried blood at the corner of her mouth. She's wearing a school uniform, red and white. Even this early in the morning, the sight is somewhat startling. That I wasn't hit just now, I credit to his good temper and my own luck. Embarrassed, I rub at the corner of my mouth. He picks up a leather jacket from the couch and slips into it in a fluid motion. You don't need to come back this afternoon. I don't tattoo minors, especially runaway rebellious kids. He misunderstands. I shake my head and pull out a crumpled $10 bill from my pocket. I place it slowly on the table. I heard you take protection money. Could you protect me? He gives me a measured look. Do I look like I'm in the mafia? Surprisingly young given closer inspection. His features sharp, his long eyelashes dark as crow's wings, handsome but also menacing, especially when devoid of expression. He seems not only like a gang member but possibly the boss. Thinking this, I inadvertently say it aloud. He shifts his neck, lets out a snicker. You've got guts. Whose kid are you? Just from the house at the very west end. He seems to consider this. James Wilson is your dad? He might as well not be. He seems to find it annoying to look down to speak to me, so he turns and sits on the couch. You saw that night, didn't you? I hit your dad, he says, picking up a water glass from the table. So are you going to hit me? I ask. Do you deserve to be hit? He counters. I shake my head decisively. My dad does, I don't. He lifts an eyelid slightly. Well, there you go. His meaning is that he won't lay a hand on me. For some reason, I just believe what he says. Seeing the conversation going off track, I push the $10 on the table a little further toward him. Maybe I'm too indifferent about my dad being beat up, or maybe I'm too persistent in seeking help from the one who did it. He asks in astonishment, You don't hate me? Hate. Hate you for not killing him. I don't even have to think about it. The person across from me chokes abruptly, coughing several times. He's holding the glass. No, how do you want me to protect you? Kill my dad. Half in jest, half serious. He doesn't drink anymore, puts the cup down on the table. Big talk for a little one. That's quite the wild idea. I'm not sure, so I choose a lesser request. Then crippling him is fine. He rubs his forehead, annoyed. Can't take that job. I didn't hold much hope to begin with, but when I hear the negative answer, I still feel disappointed. My heart sinks slowly, my breath gets heavy, my head spins, my vision begins to blur. The next second, I lurch forward. I'm vaguely caught in a hasty embrace. The man laughs out of exasperation. Damn, got myself a con artist this early in the morning. 7. In and out of consciousness. As if I've slept for a long time, the scent of disinfectant fills my nostrils. The corner of my mouth feels cool and seems to be no longer swollen. My right hand is gently held by a warm palm, tinged with a slight sense of pity. A man and a woman's low voices reach my ears. "Damned kid, half the reason this child fainted is your doing," says a voice with a hint of reproach. "I'm more wronged than due, E," laments the man in a lazy tone. Wronged? What did the doctor just say? Fever, emotional overstrain, long-term malnutrition, low blood sugar. The first two have nothing to do with you? She's nearly cooked, and you're here nitpicking. The originally gentle female voice suddenly rises 8 degrees. Seems like she can't bear it any longer. The palm moves, and the woman stands up to hit the man with a heavy thud. Ow, the man feigns pain. Then I feel a familiar breath draw near, and my right hand is held warm and steady again. You don't know, I just helped her change into a patient gown. She's so thin and bony, covered in bruises, not a single spot without injury. The voice beside my ear pauses, choked up. This child has really suffered. The man's careless voice becomes sharp, suddenly filled with an edge. Damn it, James Wilson is really a complete beast. He can lay his hands so heavily on his own daughter. I should have just killed him that day. Ethan Clark, can you please be calm? It seems to touch a nerve for both of them, and there's silence in the ensuing standoff. For a while, the hospital room is excessively quiet. The cool medicine trickled down the needle inserted in the back of my right hand, slowly merging into my body. So his name was Ethan Clark. Blurrily, a phrase came to mind, Emily Wilson. Times of peace and years of plenty, with the nation thriving and the people at peace, Elizabeth Thompson, my teacher, once praised the choice of my name. Ethan Clark, his name is good too. His parents must really love him. My name was given by my dad on the day I was born. Annoyed, he glanced at the small river by the rice paddy, noticed the clear water and said, "Call her Emily Wilson." And just like that, my mom agreed. It wasn't until I met Elizabeth Thompson that I realized even a weed could bloom. The voices around me slowly grew fainter. Under the effect of the medication, I drifted back to sleep. When I woke up again, it was already afternoon. Hold on for a moment, don't bleed. The last IV drip was done. The nurse removed the needle and motioned to the man standing by. Ethan Clark grabbed a stool and sat down, his rough fingers pressing the tape on the back of my hand with just the right amount of pressure. I tried to pull my hand back, wanting to say I could do it myself. But once I opened my mouth, my throat was dry and bitter, my voice as hoarse as a mute duck. He held my hand and passed me a paper cup from the bedside table. "You should rest your voice. It sounds like it's been shelled." I couldn't argue. I took the cup with my left hand. The water was just right, sweetly flavored. Sugar water. I blinked slowly, letting the sugar water linger in my mouth before swallowing. It was just Ethan and me in the room, and I didn't know what to say. So I kept sipping quietly. After a while, he let go as it was time. "I'll take you for an X-ray to check your ear later." I shook my head instinctively. No need. The money in my piggy bank barely covered the cost of the infusion. As for the checkup, that was too expensive. I couldn't afford it. Struggling to speak with my hoarse voice, we stared at each other, confused. It then dawned on me to use gestures, combining sign language and lip reading, fearing he wouldn't understand. After he thought for a while, he frowned. "No, are you performing a mime? I can't understand your mumbling." I was anxious. I rubbed my thumb and forefinger together, pointed at myself, waved my hands, then pointed at him. That should have been clear enough. I was saying I had no money to pay him. Seeing his sudden realization, I felt relieved. He said, "Are you trying to give me your heart and then changing your mind?" I choked. Out of breath. His interpretation was wildly off. "All right, enough, you little rascal. Stop teasing the kid." The door opened and a familiar female voice entered. It was Ethan's mother, Aunt Amanda Clark. I hadn't seen her clearly in the morning rush. She and Ethan shared a resemblance, but she seemed gentle and demure, unlike Ethan's tough demeanor. She squeezed Ethan off the stool without a good mood. "Teasing me?" I sneaked a glance at him for confirmation. He turned his eyes away, touching his nose. So he was indeed. Aunt Amanda placed the thermos she was carrying on the table and opened it. The aroma of rice porridge instantly filled the room. She checked my forehead with a smile. "Here, you've just had a fever. Have something light. When you're better, we'll eat big." I looked at the overcooked porridge in front of me. While swallowing saliva, I shook my head apologetically. I had nothing to give back to them. I owned too little. How can you not eat for a day? Be good, listen. I kept my head down, picking at my fingers, saying nothing. She sighed, then turned, her hand landing with a smack on Ethan's back. The sound was so loud that I jolted. "It's all your fault. You must have scared her again." Ethan looked resigned and numb. Okay, my fault. I've taken on so much blame. I could use it for stir-frying." "If she won't eat porridge, you can't take it with you." Aunt Amanda gestured subtly towards me. "Emily, I scolded him for you." Ethan grunted, picked up a nearby bowl, and stirred it with a spoon, leaning in with a look of strange pleading in his sharp eyes. "Ancestor, please eat. We have no grudges. Would you feel better after hitting me a couple more times?" I couldn't help but laugh. Taking the bowl, I began to eat, bite by bite. Eat slowly. There's no rush. Perhaps the porridge was too hot. It burned, and tears welled up in my eyes. They rolled down my cheeks, salty to the corner of my mouth, and try as I might to hold them back, I just couldn't. How could I not understand their kindness? Next door at my home, they cajoled a 4-year-old to eat like this. But I was no longer a child. Even when I was a child, my mom never coaxed me to eat like this. My dad despised girls. He wouldn't let me eat at the table, so I always snuck some food to a corner to eat. If I took 2 pieces of meat, his chopsticks would hit my hand, accusing me of being greedy and selfish. If my bowl was too full, his palm would land on my face, calling me lazy and gluttonous. I always rushed through meals, fearing that if I ate too slowly, my dad would smash my bowl in the next second. My mom used to brag to the neighbors about me, saying I ate like a piglet without any worry. She always only saw what she wanted to see. Tears fell like a string of broken pearls. Fearing they would notice, I hurriedly bowed my head, nearly burying my face in the porridge. I really didn't used to cry. Ethan pulled out a pack of tissues, hesitating to hand them over. Swallowing, his voice was tense. "Mom, it must be your porridge this time." When I finished the porridge, my tears finally stopped. "Did you enjoy it, Emily?" Aunt Amanda looked at me, hopeful and anxious. I spread a smile across my face and nodded vehemently. She sighed in relief. Then she smacked Ethan on the back again. "You rascal, when has your mother ever botched cooking?" Ethan covered his arm, his eyes full of grievance. I couldn't help but smile and quickly suppressed it. Ethan glanced over with an inscrutable look. Aunt Amanda went to the bathroom and fetched a basin of water. She came back with a steaming towel, gently wiped my face, and lingered a bit longer on my eyes. "After all that crying, how come you still look like a pretty little tabby cat?" I pursed my lips, with red tips of my ears. She spoke. "In a bit. We'll do a small checkup. The doctor mentioned some inflammation in your right ear, so we'll take an X-ray. It won't hurt. And as for the cost, that kid who got you hospitalized has plenty of money, doesn't he? He can afford it. A grown-up like him should take responsibility for his actions. I'd be ashamed for him if he didn't." Ethan was tidying up the dishes, nodding without looking up. Right. The X-ray was quick. The doctor looked at the gray-white image, his tone grave. This child had previously injured her right ear, and it's been left untreated for too long. The eardrum perforation wasn't dealt with in time, and now, after multiple blows, the damage has compounded. It's complicated, and all we can do for now is use medication to reduce the inflammation. "Can surgery cure it?" Aunt Amanda inquired with a furrowed brow. "The success rate for surgery is too low. I wouldn't recommend it." It was an outcome nobody seemed to have anticipated. We left the hospital in silence, but I didn't want them to be unhappy because of me. The hearing in my right ear had been deteriorating, something I had noticed quite some time ago. At the age of 5, a slap from my father, James, caused my eardrum to perforate. My mother tried to take me to the hospital, but on the way, the money was snatched by my father for gambling. He said that I was petty and always looking for reasons to visit the hospital. My mother was timid and could only hug me and cry, then told me to swallow 2 anti-inflammatory pills. At first, my ear was painfully throbbing all night, feeling swollen and hot. When I clung to my mother, telling her I was in pain, she would pat my back and tell me to go to sleep and it would be all right. But the pain only seemed to amplify. When I expressed my pain, she lost compassion and became impatient and skeptical. She said money was hard to earn and asked if I could be less troublesome. I wasn't lying, it truly was excruciating, but no one cared. So I endured, biting my fingers until they bled, biting the inside of my mouth until it bruised. Eventually, the pain became a habit. Night after long night, a harsh reminder that I was a child no one cared for. But now I was seeing this delayed care and concern in them. It was almost suffocating. I took a few deep breaths, pushing the emotions back down. I managed to smile, though my voice was still raspy. Actually, it's no different from a normal person to have only half hearing, and besides, having 1.5 ears is really cool. Aunt Amanda turned her head towards me, her eyes wet with emotion. Ethan pulled his hand from his pocket, covered my ear, and whispered softly, "Yeah, it's really cool." 9 Ping An Lane was deep, so standing at the entrance and walking in gave completely different perspectives. I had thought Ethan was just a petty gangster, collecting protection money, as they said, which was why I went to find him. But after getting to know him, I realized it wasn't like that at all. He and his mother were good people. Very good people. The courage I had mustered up deflated like a punctured ball. I carried the blood of my father, James. Inescapable in life and in death, destined to always be worn down. On the way back, Aunt Amanda held my hand tightly while Ethan carried the medicine the doctor prescribed for me, walking behind us. It felt so warm, almost as if we were a family. How I wished this path had no end, that we could walk on like this forever. But I knew it wasn't possible. Once we reached the alley, the fantasy should end. I had no reason to stay anymore. A sadness that couldn't be named crept into my heart. I planned to grab the luggage at the door and then head home. What awaited me there I didn't know. It just seemed harder to breathe just thinking about it. Strangely, I couldn't find my bag after searching 3 times at the entrance. "Aren't you coming in? Searching for your soul at the door?" Ethan started working on his sketches once we got home, propping his long legs along the edge of the stool. I whispered, "I'm looking for a bag. It's a woven one." He pointed upwards with his pen. "It's in the south-facing room. My mom has put it away for you." "Huh?" Before I got a clear answer, Aunt Amanda emerged from the kitchen. She hugged my shoulder. "Emily, I've just stewed some soup and have prepared a room for you upstairs. Come, see if you like it." When I understood her intention, I immediately waved my hands. "No need, Aunt Amanda. I'm going home soon." "Why go back to get hit?" Ethan didn't even lift his head. "Stay until you recover. Don't collapse as soon as you step out the door. Otherwise, people would tease me, Ethan Clark, for bullying even kids." Aunt Amanda chimed in, Right. Stay for a couple of days. Build up your strength." I was stunned, feeling like a huge pie had just dropped from the sky, leaving me dazed. With half encouragement and half compulsion, I ended up going upstairs. The room was neat and exquisite, with its own wardrobe and desk, and the bed was made with a brand-new floral bedding set. A succulent plant basked leisurely in the sunlight on the windowsill. Maybe it was the atmosphere, but even the earthy yellow woven bag on the sofa seemed brighter. I stood dumbfounded at the door. Perhaps it's a bit too plain. I didn't have much time, and a girl's room should have more thought put into it. You move in, and Aunt Amanda will decorate it little by little. No, it was already perfect to the point of unreality. I had never lived in such a pretty room, always remembering that dark storeroom without light. Maybe I should have refused, but inexplicably, I couldn't bear to. During dinner, Aunt Amanda brought out the last dish, a winter melon, corn, and pork rib soup, and placed it in the center of the table. 3 main dishes and 1 soup, each looked refreshing, not a mishmash stew. The bowls and plates were part of a set, with white porcelain and black edges, no chips or cracks. I remembered reading somewhere that food is the first necessity of the people, and a family's life, atmosphere, and attitude are clearly reflected at the dinner table. Now, this simple yet unattainable meal represented the home I had longed for. Aunt Amanda urged me to be at ease, said to eat what I liked as if it were my own home. I nodded silently, eating as slowly as possible. But still, the food Aunt Amanda served me was finished. The delicious steamed chicken with mushrooms was less than 30 centimeters from my chopsticks, but I dared not touch it again. It would be selfish and ill-mannered to do so. That's what my parents taught me. People who didn't like me were numerous, but I didn't want Aunt Amanda and the rest to dislike me too. I furiously shoveled the remaining white rice in my bowl, pretending to be busy, afraid to stop and let them notice my embarrassment and rudeness. I inwardly scolded myself for not being slower earlier. Finally, even the last grain of rice was gone. I slowly rested my chopsticks on the edge of the bowl. Aunt Amanda said, "Emily, are you full already? You ate so little." I nodded. "Yes, Aunt, I'm full." "Are you truly full?" She looked worried. "Yes, truly." To seem convincing, I even feigned a burp. Feeling a deep gaze upon me, I looked up and locked eyes with Ethan. His dark pupils were steady. "You're living here for now, so this is your home. You don't need to hold back." I didn't dwell on the deeper meaning of his words, quickly nodded that I was full, and then excused myself to go upstairs to do homework. Behind me, the two exchanged glances for a long while, Aunt Amanda the first to sigh. 10 as expected, going to bed on an empty stomach meant waking up in the middle of the night, hungry to the point of nausea. I rubbed my stomach aimlessly, curled myself into a ball on the side. Based on past experience, enduring this period was all it took. My mind wandered. Today was Saturday, and tomorrow Sunday. The National Day holiday would give us 7 days off, and school would resume the Monday after next. But I didn't want to go to school. I was scared of those people and didn't know how to face Elizabeth Thompson. The blanket was soft and comfortable. I smoothed out the wrinkles with my hand and took a light sniff. No smell of tobacco or damp mold, just the scent of sunlight. I couldn't help but smile.